Hi everyone, welcome to a special episode of Montgomery Focus, where we've not only left the studio, but we've left the city of Montgomery to travel here to Hoover. Now we've made this trip for an extraordinary visit to Montgomery's past. Mrs. Jean Daniels served on the Montgomery Library Board 60 years ago, and she's welcoming us into her home. Mrs. Daniel, let's begin the interview. The first thing that we'd like to say is thank you very, very much for the hospitality and for allowing us to come and chat with you today.
Well, I'm delighted to take part in this project. I think it may be a good one.
And also I want to say thank you for your community service for the work you did as a member of the library board back in the 1950s.
Well, it was so long ago. Are you sure you remember?
Well, maybe I don't remember directly, but I've heard about it. And there's a big plaque in the building that has your name on it as a member of the library board.
Yes, and I'm very thankful for that, because they had to take it out of the building and move it into a room.
Indeed. Tell us about what the library was like and what it meant to Montgomery back when you were on the board there.
Well, it was really the only source of books to people in Montgomery. And when Carnegie had given us the money, and we had that very nice, we thought, wonderful little library downtown, it served so few people, but it was a very almost elemental part of the education plan there. And so it was a very inadequate and wonderful part of the structure for Montgomery.
Sure. And was it used by families for mothers to read to their children, or did business people use it?
Well, I don't know how much business people used it, because it could not be a very wide resource library, and it was so slow to move books from one area to another. But it did serve the county and the city, and the ability to get books in the country areas was so limited, and we were the hub of that whole plan. And it was just, as I say, I feel a very important part of the city council structure and culture. And we worked with business people too.
When the building was built, how much larger was it? And I guess when the new building was built, you had another tenant that was also in that building as well, the museum.
Oh, you're talking about the new
library. Yes, the new library, now that once
I'm
that was
still
built.
on the Carnegie and thinking,
Sure.
No, I didn't know the Carnegie. I'm not that old.
Sure.
When the building was built, the library and the museum went in together because pooled their money with the city, and the city really did want that building built. The library the museum had been in the basement of one of the old high schools that had been closed, and it was all hand to mouth, and so it was a matter of great pride. I was not on the board at the time, and that's all I can tell you about it.
Sure. You were on the Friends of the Library Board before you joined the board proper?
Well, I moved there and just took part in the civic part. I had grown up working for the library for my mother when I was 12. We had no city library, and my mother, aunt, and some other women in the women's club decided to build one, and they built a library for Montgomery, for Winder, Georgia, and got their children to work in it. And so I was sent down to help move books around and do things as a part of the library from the time I was very, very young. So that's my background.
Sure. So that's why libraries have a fond place in your heart.
And that was before the state took over the responsibility of putting a library in every one of the counties.
Sure. You mentioned that the library was an important part of the educational infrastructure for Montgomery. Can you expand upon that? Was it that people who could not afford books on their own would have a place to go to get books, or?
Well, it was a social center for people moving in and out of the downtown area. People were in and out of the downtown area every day in that era. And so they needed places to sit, talk, meet. So it became part of that part of the city, as well as lending books and being a support to the education. It was always set out to be a support to the high schools and grammar schools of Montgomery.
Sure. And I guess bookmobiles were first used around that time as well. Were you involved in part of that decision making to bring a bookmobile to take the books out into the communities?
Oh yeah, you wanted to be a part of the community. You wanted to serve them. Of course, one of the fun incidents is when we had a book brought back. People put all sorts of things for bookmarks, and someone had used a slice of bacon. It didn't help the book a bit.
No, not at all. But I guess if the next person to borrow the book was hungry, then it was a very convenient snack.
We assumed that he was or she was having a snack. So you just didn't know exactly what was going to come up when you went down.
Yeah. Well, I have maybe abused a book or two in my time, but I've never left a slice of bacon in there yet. I don't think I will. The library right now is named after Juliet Hampton Morgan, and you knew Ms. Morgan.
Yes, slightly. I knew her as a personage and not really as a personal friend.
Sure.
But she had just tried so hard to ease the feeling toward the library so that it would not be closed. That, as you know, the mayor had closed everything, the old park, sold the monkey. We had 2 monkeys down there for years.
Yes.
Poor things. But we had lost so much in Montgomery that closing anything that came along that was to be integrated. And we thought we wanted to save the library. There were many people who supported us, at least afterward.
Yes, yeah, it's very easy to be brave after the danger is gone, but you're to be commended for being so progressive when it was probably unpopular with a lot of people.
Oh, it was very unpopular. And all of the different, what are those clubs that were organized at the, the Citizen Council, and I don't remember. Thank goodness. Okay, let's forget them.
Sure. The board decided, yes, the library should integrate, and I guess at one point...
and the mayor said no. Yeah. And so he told us ahead of time we could not integrate. And then finally he called us down when it was getting closer and closer, we realized, to a time of testing with other people. And so he sent for us to come down for a meeting and said that they would not protect us. They could not give us any police protection. And the windows had been broken out of the car of the chairman of the board. He lived in Oak Park, and his windows had been broken in his car. It's sort of a word of warning. And so we were in a position of no support and no protection. Is it wise? Could we do it? Should we just wait and let it go through the courts and then have them reopen it by a court order or something? But they hadn't reordered nothing much had been ordered to open again. We didn't know which position we'd be in.
Sure.
Like the schools ordered to do it or ignore it like the parks. So anyway.
I'm very impressed that you were able to stand up to the mayor. That had to take a lot of bravery. Did you just think that this was the right thing to do and it had to be done that way?
Well, that was my case. I felt it had to be done. It was for everybody's good, and the sooner the better, and the less that went on, the better. There really had been a big tide. You could feel it in the city of everybody was tired of it, the fighting and the fussing and the not going and sitting in the door and all that. And afterward, we received a letter of commendation for the men of Montgomery. And after that time, they were more willing to step out too. I think it was just the right time to do it.
Sure. At one point, a group sent a letter to the library saying that if you integrated, it was going to do an act of violence. Tell us about the letter and your reaction to the letter and how you decided to work around the threat of violence.
Yes, well, personally, I never felt in danger. I did not. It was not a really brave thing to do. And as far as the letter we concerned you interested in, it came after the decision had been made and the court had said we had to go on with integration and that they could not take our decisions to integrate. And we were planning, we had told our clerks to serve anyone who came in because the mayor sent word he'd fire them if they did. So with that kind of power play, everybody thought it would be over or something. So we went on to court and we were put under restriction for the federal government because they thought we could not in any way win with the city council. Mm-hmm. And so they put us under restrictions to stay open, which was what we really wanted.
Of course.
And so the feds say we have to stay open. We have to stay open. And we're no longer really under the complete power of the court. But you wanted to know about the letter. Afterwards, I guess it was less than a week, a letter arrived down the mayor's office saying that there was an organization called the Red Men, and you may remember them from Alabama history. And they were the ones that wouldn't obey the federal government and revolted and were going to fight anyway. And that they were beyond the bounds of the Klan, and that they intended to kill anyone in white they saw sitting next to a black in the library after it opened. And they planned to be out there in those bushes around the glass windows. And it was not a really huge threat. The city could have protected the building at any time, but we wanted everything quiet, so we decided to take all the chairs out of the building, and no one would be sitting next to anybody else. And so we opened up with much fanfare, and no chairs, and people got mighty tired. But slowly we put in chairs 2 or 3 at a time in different parts, and nothing was ever said, and we had no more letters, no more.
And did you reveal the threat or the letter, or you kept that secret when it arrived back then?
When what?
When the letter was delivered, did you let the public know about the threat, or
No. The whole thing was kept very secret, and I don't think anything was even written about it until a year or 2 ago. very recent years. The mayor didn't want it known. We didn't want it known. So it was kept very, very quiet.
Sure. Did you get ridiculed by some of the newspapers up north?
Oh yeah, they had a really good time writing about Montgomery, who would take all the chairs out of the library. They're so angry about having to integrate. We were so thankful to have had it done.
And you said slowly, bit by bit, you added furniture and... Yeah.
We added our furniture back in. Nothing was out. We never received another letter or hint. And I doubt that organization existed. I think 2 or 3 people had that idea and wrote.
It must have given you a great sense of satisfaction, as you said, to keep the library open while all of the other public facilities were being closed during
One by
integration.
one, they had been closed, and we managed to stay open, so we were very pleased.
Sure.
And the long-term library people were pleased too, and as I say, by then Montgomery was changing.
Yeah.
It was accepting things.
Mm-hmm. Tell us about Montgomery. What was it like? Was Dexter Avenue, it was very crowded. It was the center of town.
Oh, certainly. You went to town regularly, and you crossed Dexter Avenue without getting killed. We're very pleased. And it was a busy area of shopping. The dime stores went downtown. The kids went down in the afternoon, and there was bus service, good bus service, and until it was all closed.
Sure.
And so it was a very different city, and there was plenty of room to park. There was a lot of double parking, and people would go down and park and get a Coca-Cola at the drugstore and sit in the car and drink the Coke and look at the people pass by.
Sure.
It was really, of course, the center of the town.
And I guess Hank Williams would perform concerts there. And did you ever get to see him in concert?
No, not many. If you mean
musical concert, yeah, Hank.
They were nearly always connected with the high schools.
Okay.
And any professional plays and concerts that were brought into Lynell, because they had the best stage in town. In fact, nearly got myself and my children trampled, taking them to see, what's that Western movie that, play?
Oklahoma.
High, the cotton is high as an elephant's eye. I'm sure you remember which one that was from.
But it was there was a mob. It was crowded.
It was right off of Broadway.
Okay.
They brought it to Lynell when it was very fresh and very new, and the whole city went, and a rain cloud came along and poured rain as everybody got out. And the people in the back pushed in the front, one of those trample things.
Sure.
And I found myself standing there with 3 children in my arms. I was trying to keep them all off the floor.
Yeah.
And it was a little frightening.
Of
thing
course.
that happened with that. U.S.
Of course. And I guess Montgomery was also the center of politics for the whole state, and
Absolutely.
governors lived not too far from your home, I imagine, with the governor's mansion.
And the governor's wife always was invited to join a literary club in Montgomery and to become part of the social milieu. And they took part in the dances and every part of the city. But there was an awful lot that was hidden.
Sure, sure. Did you come or cross paths with any civil rights figures? Did you cross paths with Dr. King or Mrs. Rosa Parks at all?
Oh no, but Judge Johnson was presiding in the court in which I testified. And who is the Gray? What's
Fred Gray, attorney Fred Gray.
Gray? He's had quite a nice career since then, and he questioned me during the trial. And he was a good lawyer. I mean, he knew how to use questions.
Sure, sure. Wow, that's very interesting. You are a had a front row seat to history. You were making history.
Yes, and when the lawyer said, "Well, you seemed pretty much at ease," I said, "Well, my dad was a lawyer, and the courts are not that strange to me." And so I managed to get through it. I went down to the courthouse by myself. Nobody volunteered to go with me.
Sure, sure.
My husband held his practice just like any other day.
Can you tell us about why libraries are important, and what do you want to happen with Montgomery's library as we move forward into the future?
Well, I would love to see it grow and be useful. I don't know how libraries are going to have to change because of books and tapes and all the other things. So what I would like to see would be for it to grow in a way that is useful to the coming time, especially for the underprivileged, to have a place they could use modern technology.
Yeah.
So.
That is the riddle. I think communities all across the country and maybe around the world are still trying to figure out how do we make sure that libraries remain relevant and educational tools as well.
Well, we'll ask the Library of Congress.
We might have to do that. We have a library board member now named Gary Burton who says libraries should be called the People's University because it just has the ability to uplift an entire community. Mm-hmm. Do you agree that it is a valuable educational resource?
I do indeed.
Good deal. Well, thank you very, very much for taking us down history lane, and thank you for the courage and the bravery that you showed.
I'm not sure all of it was true, but I think it was.
I'm sure all of it was, and we just want to say thank you very much for your community service to the library system, and thank you also for allowing us to come here to your home today.
You're welcome.
That's all for this episode of Montgomery Focus. A very special thank you to Mrs. Jean Daniel for her hospitality and also for her courage and community service more than a half-century ago. We'll see you next time right here on Montgomery Focus. Until then, everyone, have a great Montgomery day.